Well, joining me now in studio is the co-organizer of the Washington, D.C. Youth Climate Strike, Iolana Weidgenant. Welcome, Lana.
Thank you for having me.
So, tell us first, give us a bit of background. How did you first become involved in the fight against climate change?
I got in contact with other organizers, mostly high school students in the DMV area, and I had been following in what was happening in Europe with Greta Thunberg and the school strikes for climate, and I just knew I had to get involved here.
Now, it's interesting because despite all these continued warnings about climate change, its impact, several nations either continue to downplay, dismiss, or essentially just ignore what's at stake. So what is it about this issue and what you saw that particularly resonated with you?
Exactly. It's our generation, the younger generations, that will be impacted the most. And so when we see an action on the part of adults and older generations, that's why this movement becomes so urgent, especially so urgent for younger students to get involved.
And I can only imagine how frustrating it is when you know that future generations and younger generations are going to be living with the consequences of it. So even though at this point you don't have the ability to vote, what can you do to leverage this movement into actual change and getting adults on board?
Exactly. So we have started with having demands, not just striking for climate action, but for striking for specific demands. For example, in the United States, supporting the Green New Deal, and internationally choosing to back legislation and not just the idea of climate action.
And tell us a bit about some of the challenges that you've been facing in this push to try and get, less climate inaction, essentially.
Well, there's always, I think it's been going on for a while that this issue has not received the attention and coverage that it should. So all of a sudden to try to change the way that things have been going, it has not been easy.
And it certainly doesn't make it any easier when you have the Paris Climate Accord, but obviously it's non-binding, and so really essentially countries aren't being forced to lower their emissions. What would you like to see happen?
I would like this issue to receive the attention that it deserves, and not just the attention, but the policies. I would like to see politicians especially and legislators take action on this issue and listen to our demands, not just talk about how we are protesting, but actually talk about what we are demanding and why we are out there.
And obviously it's a combination of not just governments, but a lot of these individual companies. So in terms of what can be done to incentivize adults who have a lot of this spending power, who can really essentially speak with their money, what would you like them to understand about what's at stake?
That this is our future, that this is not going to go away, that this is not one day, it's not just March 15th, that this is only a beginning, and that climate change will only accentuate and we will only rise more as it does.
Now, we did see some division among some adults who were being rather dismissive and other educators who were supporting these strikes. How have you seen the reaction when you see younger people trying to get their voices out there?
I think that there have been several adults that have been very supportive, and we very much encourage that. We encourage that adults don't only look at this as a youth-only issue. We really need their solidarity. We really need their support to get this movement going. And I think that for those that have not supported it yet, just know that we are here and we are going to continue growing and building in number. And this is an issue that we are not going to back down from.
And sometimes when you have movements like this, once the media attention of the actual day goes away, sometimes the work after the movement is the real work. What would you like people to do beyond today's strikes?
I would like them to get involved with their local environmental organizations. There are several different organizations doing this work, looking into legislators and policy, and especially as far as calling your representatives. Just do a quick search, check out just for local organizations, environmental climate change organizations, and get involved locally.
And for people out there who either don't want to get involved or are still in denial because it seems like the consequences of climate change are just too far away to be real, what would you like them to understand?
I would like them to understand that there's a difference between science and what science says and what anyone might tell you. So I think it's very important to understand that the science very clearly says that climate change is happening and that it is accentuating. So I think it's important to start there, just to acknowledge the science and to acknowledge that science is real is really the starting point for everyone.
All right, thank you so much for your insights. Iolana Weidgenant, co-organizer at the DC Youth Climate Strike.